Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. I'm your host, Lily Allen Duenas. Together, we'll talk about the world of yoga and we'll talk to people from around the world. Join us for authentic conversations about the global yoga ecosystem, and we'll cover yoga philosophies and methodologies along the way. Inhale, exhale. We're about to dive in. Namaste, family. Welcome to this episode of the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Ana Paula Hernández from Mexico. She's just an amazing woman with an amazing story, and I am so excited to have a conversation with her to share with you, all dear listeners. So Ana Paula Hernández first began her yoga journey in 2002 and completed her Hatha Yoga 200-hour certification. She then found her passion for various styles of yoga, starting a series of certifications, including Yin Yoga, Restorative Yoga, Mat Pilates, Yoga Nidra, Prenatal Yoga, Yoga for Kids, and Thai Massage. She also did complete a year-long course in Ayurvedic medicine and cooking with Dr. Shiva Varma. So Ana Paula taught yoga from the beginning of her career, and that was actually in Vancouver, before returning home to Mexico in 2008, where she immediately opened a small home yoga studio. And in 2011, she opened the Dristi Center in Mexico. And since then, Ana Paula has been leading 200-hour yoga teacher trainings, continuing education programs, and classes, workshops, certifications, all throughout Mexico and abroad. So thank you so much, Ana, for joining me on the show today.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So let's dive in. I know our time's limited, so I'm just so eager to get started. So how about, could we start just you telling me, how did you find yoga, or how did yoga find you?
Yeah, of course. Well, I am a lawyer. I had a degree in law in Mexico before moving to Vancouver. And I just went to Vancouver for a holiday. I met a guy. I fell in love. We got married 3 months into the relationship, and I moved into Canada full time from Mexico. And I realized afterwards that law was different in Canada than Mexico, different systems. So I could not be a lawyer there after going through college. So I hit a kind of massive rock in my life, and I just went into a really bad episode of depression and eating disorders. And, I fall into the system of psychiatrists. And to make the long story short, I end up having a severe addiction to Xanax, alcohol, and not eating much. Anyways, I kind of hit bottom, and obviously kind of like the medical system failed me a little bit there because they just give me more antidepressants and I get worse. And what happened is finally just found yoga through a friend that took me to an osteopath, and I went to my first yoga class, and I just purchased a year. I didn't even ask because I needed help, and that's how I found out yoga. I didn't like it very much in the beginning. The first few classes felt like an exorcism. It was kind of funny. And then I got a really, really, really good teacher, really amazing, profound experience. I was able to find myself without so much self-inflicted pain. And it began a new relationship with my body, with my soul, my spirit. And a year after, I was a teacher, and all the story that you just mentioned began. That's how I started yoga.
Wow, that is a hard road to walk to come to yoga. But I've never actually heard of yoga being described as an exorcism. That totally caught me off guard. Do you mean you just felt like all of this negative, like, dark gray yuck, inner stuff just came out in the class like that?
Yeah, because I was in a completely state of manic depression, addiction, And you are in the yoga studio where the perfect lady comes out dressing in white, all pretty. And she's like, enjoy being in your body, enjoy the sensations. And I did not understand what she was saying. I hate myself. I hate my body. What is she talking about? And obviously, a few months after, I tap into it. But in the first few classes, there is somebody out there that looks what you want to be, feels what you want to feel, and it's just facing you to the lack of it. And you're just like feel completely thrown off guard. Like, what is she talking about? So it was like being on my own body was not pleasant the first few times whatsoever. Not a good experience, but it was part of the shadow, the yin, right? It was just tapping into the darkness that I needed to confront.
I'm very glad you did. I know that it's, as I said, a hard road, and I do think that in yoga class, it's that comparison thing too, looking around the room, seeing these people more flexible, or as you said, having what you want, or that envy, jealousy, ego, that element that comes into the class. I think in the beginning of our practice is definitely something to be aware of. It can creep in at any time too. It's not just the beginning, but it's part of the journey.
Yes, it is. And as a teacher, when I become a teacher, I think part of what makes me a little bit more approachable teacher is that I take care a lot of my language and my communication skills to students to be very inclusive. And I just know how I started. So when I have a beginner, a first timer, I'm very aware of the experience and I try to make funny comments because I know beginner mind and not be so elevated and throw out so much Sanskrit or make classes very complex, and because it's their first time and that first time could change somebody's life forever like it did to mine.
So I know that as I mentioned in your bio, you're trained in hatha yoga, yin yoga, restorative, prenatal, all these different yoga styles and modalities. But it seems to me like yin yoga has really won over your heart. Why is this your favorite asana practice?
I started yin yoga early in my recovery. I was in my second year clean and recovering from my eating disorder. And what happened in yin yoga was this really beginning to feel comfortable in quietness. Perhaps hatha yoga, power yoga, ashtanga yoga is more of the same, of this jumping monkey mind constantly. And what happened in yin for me was not forcing myself to have a sitting down meditation and perhaps do a very slow, meditative, deep practice and have longer periods of silence. And I confronted my monsters there. I call it part of my full recovery in yoga and help me majority with my eating disorder and try to not talking in therapy and not being with a support group or AA or any of those things. And through yoga, with yoga, through silence, through resilience, through holding, begin a healing process. That's why yin is so important to me.
You described that really beautifully. I do think that yin yoga can be very extra uncomfortable for people, because having to hold something that you're confronting your edge of perhaps discomfort or pain in a position, and you can't escape it. You're to be there 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute. It's not going to be forever, but when you're in a level of kind of a battle against the asana, it's can be torture. But if you can let go and surrender and embrace it, I think you learn some lessons, no matter if you're battling or not. I think yin does have a lot to teach.
Well, I love your analogy that you did right now because Marcus Aurelius says treat life as a battle, not a dance, and be kind of like more of a warrior. While Bernie Clark says, treat yoga, yin yoga, as a dance, not like a wrestling match. So, that's the principle of yin is stop the fighting, stop the fighting and just start reconciling with yourself and how deep you go, how fast, and try to be more mindful about what is a place of comfort versus where is a place of self-inflicted pain.
Well, I definitely do believe that anything that you fights you back twice as hard. I know the minute I start to resist something, it just flares up. So I think that's very astute. And I wanted to ask, you mentioned Bernie Clark now, and I'm so excited just to ask you a bit about him because I'm knee deep in his newest book, Your Spine, Your Yoga. He is just a genius. And I know that you were trained by him and you're close friends with him. So what are some of like the most, I don't know, like jaw-dropping takeaways that you've learned from him throughout the years?
Oh my God, that man is so much to talk about him. But anyways, we were colleagues in a yoga studio in Vancouver. We worked for the same studio for the first few years. And he came back from a trip saying, I learned yin yoga, and we started his first generation. And it was kind of more like a study group. And Diana Batts was there, some big names, Cameron Greeley, myself. And it was him coming back with this new information. We were all caught up a little bit more into Ashtanga, Hatha, power. And he came with this new thing. And he said, would you guys want to be like my first generation and experiment with this? And I say, yeah. Well, we started with that, and the way, I guess, the way that I enjoy it the most about Bernie is that every single class that Bernie gives is a workshop. It is so much to take from. If you want to talk science, he can tell you all the benefits of yin yoga because he's obviously his passion as well. If he's going to talk about, you know, philosophy, he'll talk about uh, any text in the book you can think of and give you great analogies. If he wants to talk about stories of Shiva and Shakti and any class that you're going to witness with him, you walk away with so much information. That's for me the biggest gift. And he doesn't hide anything back. And that's one of the principles that he gave me as a teacher, as a 200-hour and continuing education and 500 and 300 is if you're a good teacher, you don't hide back your gifts. You try to give them away so you create better teachers. That's for me the gift of Bernie Clark.
That is an enormous gift for sure to just pour it out. Don't hold it back. Don't reserve any for later, or there's just that kind of overpouring of skill and knowledge and love. In terms of actual, I don't know, anatomy or yin, is there just something though that like a phrase he said or something that you've learned from him that you just carry with you in your day to day kind of as well?
Well, yes, your body, your yoga in general, that's kind of my principle as a teacher too. And as I go and train teachers, your body, your yoga. And training somebody to become a teacher is not about so much how good you are at asana versus how much needs to be learned about how each body is the universe. And you, as a good yoga teacher, need to know everything you can so you can guide somebody into their practice, not yours. So that's what I can take from Bernie: your body, your yoga.
And I think for me, it's also your biography and your biology, like just how it's just such a mix and every single body is completely unique. I say that in my head, your biology and your biography, it changes everything. And yoga isn't, there's the two types, he says, like aesthetic versus functional. And it's like, which one do you really want? And it's so relevant right now, I think, with all of the social media crazes and these, putting on pedestal contortionists or pretzels. And I'm sorry, perhaps that sounds a little harsh, but
No, it isn't. This is absolutely truth. And it's also, as a teacher, how much you touch because you're looking for aesthetics to a body you're completely foreign, versus how comfortable is the student, even if it doesn't look like the book or the photo in Instagram, right? And how much space as a teacher are you giving to the student to have their own experience versus your experience?
No, that's true. Because I think as a teacher, we're also imposing our own expectations on the students, or we can impose kind of, are they listening to me? Are they even trying? There can be a whole dialogue and a whole story we create. So I think the more that we can kind of come back to that truth, their body, their yoga, and kind of understanding their experience and having kind of just taking ourselves out of the equation as much as we can, I think.
We're just windows, we're just channels. Is what I can take from 22 years of teaching. I think is the less you make it about yourself and the more you're going to actually uh, be there just to guide them into their own light, the better teacher you'll become.
What time of day do you recommend people to do yin, or do you have advice for those who want to do it first thing in the morning when they're a little bit more stiff?
When you have time to balance your yang style life or your lifestyle yang, whatever you want to call it, this madness and craziness of always doing, always coming, always going, and you need a piece of counter to that lifestyle, just throw yourself and do a butterfly for 5 minutes, right? In terms of yin of the system, of course, morning and cold is kind of like the best, but also you can do some gentle yin at night to have a better sleep. When you have a chance to counter your yang life, that's the question, right? When are you going to have a little bit of time to start looking into the other side? That's the question.
As always, there's no right answer.
Exactly. No, but I think, if you really want to go to the book, to the text, to the system, morning cold will be very, very cool experience versus uh people use yin yang a lot. People use yin after a yang session. Well, you already warmed up. Your ligaments and your muscles already going to have a very different experience at the real principle of yin yoga that is going in through the yin tissues, correct? So if you want to experience this system, morning cold will be a very good experience.
And it's not any extra stress on the joints or anything?
No, God, no. Quite the opposite. Quite the opposite. Think about of your muscle as your protection, right? Think about of your yang tissue being that kind of what stops me to keep going farther. So if you are overheated, if you go in for a run, you have a very warm yang practice and you finish with yin, your muscle will behave already differently in terms of protection that when it's cold. So your flexibility will be already altered. That when you do it on the morning, your what stop me cues are more accurate when you're cold than when you're already warmed up.
So I'm glad we also talked about joints, because I know that you work a lot with medical protocols and the nervous system, and you work alongside neurologists and physicians. I would just love for you to tell me more about that. Would you mind?
I work a lot with elderly people, and that got me to be a little bit more careful about joints because their bodies are being here for a long time, and there are a lot of stories. Uh, if they were runners, skiers, softball, any kind of sport injury, they come to yoga and they just want everything to work perfectly, and sometimes it's not the case. What pushes you as a teacher to learn more, and that's kind of how I started my journey into more medical protocols. And right now, currently, I am taking a 1,000-hour diploma in Bowen therapy, just kind of transitioning more from the yoga studio 32 people kind of class student to more one-on-one holistic kind of practice, we'll call it healing. And yeah, my specialty is kind of working nervous system and, kind of conditions as Parkinson's, dementia, anything that includes kind of connecting both sides of the brain constantly, three sides of the brain, back side of the brain, the three lobes. So that's what I do the most right now.
And what excites you about that? Or why do you feel so drawn? Like, what element of it kind of attracted you?
It attracted me to see if it's caught early. For example, let's go to dementia or Parkinson's. If it's caught early and you get a client, I don't call them patients, I don't call them students, I call them clients because they're coming for a whole experience. You can really prevent the condition to progress as fast as they kind of believe so much the diagnose and become to restrict their movement. Exercise is such a big part in the protocol in nervous system conditions, and having three kind of stimulation on the brain in terms of movement can make an exceptional difference into the people outcome long term. This is my passion, to cut early the condition. Obviously, I am not a doctor, so I cannot diagnose, but if I see something that calls my attention in a very soft and non-invasive way, I will make a couple of questions. And I work with neurologists. They usually get sent out to a GP, from a GP to a neurologist. And if there is a concern, something to talk about, we immediately switch to protocol of the condition. And the most rewarding part is I've been working with people for 3-4 years, and to see them getting better and not worse, and not needing to increase medications that are so harmful for kidneys and liver.
That's amazing. Getting to be able to work with students over the long term isn't something I've never been able to do. I've just been moving around so much. And so I definitely think that would be just a humbling experience, right? To watch somebody, you know, wind things back, or just being able to halt the progress of something medically in the body. And it's really incredible to witness.
Oh, it's beautiful. I think this is a part of my job that it really kind of it brings tears to my eyes to see progress, and kind of parts where the medical community sometimes gives them a death sentence, too early, too soon, too fast, and how, eating right, exercising, and doing the best you can to not be the diagnosis or not be the condition can really give them an incredible outcome. That's for me kind of the most rewarding part of what I'm doing right now.
Amazing. So, something I ask every guest is, what is your definition of yoga? I know, impossible. But how would you define yoga to somebody who didn't even know what it was?
Ooh, that's a big, big question. I was invited to participate in a book. Jody Berg, I really like to mention her. She's doing some amazing work, and she's gone to all over the world photographing. She's a photographer and is a yogi. And in my turn came when she came to Mexico, and she asked me to have a photo shoot for her book. And Why We Do Yoga was the name of her book. So you participate with your photograph, and then you have to elaborate with a phrase. And as much as articulated I am, and I can talk for 3 hours, when that question was asked for me, there was one word that came in a very intuitional form, and for me meant survival. If it wasn't for yoga, I wouldn't be alive. So it was survival.
Wow, that's a powerful instinct to have that word call up. For me, I don't know, when I was hearing you tell that the story, and for me, the first word that just came out of my, just gut was salvation. I don't know why. I feel like yoga it's just such a sanctuary, and
It is. Well, they're very, very similar words: salvation, survival. Both of them are giving you a choice. A choice, as do I stay in ways that sometimes are not functioning, or dialogues are really not working, or do I do something about it, right? And it takes you out of the victim. I think for me, that's what yoga did for me, is I stopped blaming others, and I start looking at myself. And my teacher was Zen, Zen philosophy. That was where I got trained in Prana Yoga Zen Center in Vancouver. And that was kind of the thing, is you stop being a victim, and just start looking at yourself.
it's a choice that, and I don't think that choice is something that we make once.
No, no. And yoga also pushed me into places that I will come. I just finished my master's in holistic therapy. And I don't know if you have that word in English, but it's constelaciones, or reconciling family lineages, through all the females, all the males, mother, father, daughters, sons. And also, the word in German is Hellstatt. I don't know, it's a humanistic kind of psychology. So obviously, through my years of yoga, I see it less physical and more into psyche, more into mind, more into what quality of life you want to have here, that comes from Vedanta, right? It's not about the attaching of this body. It's about, okay, you are into this body. What's the experience you want to have into this dimension?
That's a powerful question. And I feel like there's just so much going on in the world, in our lives, in our jobs, or in every element. I just feel like we are just swamped, just with messages and with desires and with things that are just constantly trying to snag away bits and pieces of ourselves. um, so I don't know if that sounds like a random way to respond, but that's what came up for me listening.
Well, I think it odd is what happened to us old farts. Just say that kidding, right? In the yoga world, that we've been here more than 2 decades or so. We're seeing a transformation a little bit. And there's a lot of moral superiority in us. And I see that in myself, that sometimes I feel that the way that yoga is understood now is not as good as mine. And that creates judgment in me when I see young, beautiful yoginis showing out their beautiful bodies and their asana and Instagram. And then how some hashtags have become very soft porn into the industry. And we feel some moral superiority about saying, I am better than that. My yoga is deeper than that. But we have to understand that it's a different era. And maybe perhaps that Instagram, away from real lineage, maybe will change somebody's life, because they can start by saying, oh, I want to look like that. I want to be like that. And in the journey, they can find what I found. So it's about stepping away from judgment, and it's a hard work for me. I have to be completely transparent into this broadcast, And it challenges me, troubles me going to Instagram every day and getting all these messages and information of what yoga should be, how yoga should look. But then I woke out of my judgment and said, maybe my niece, they're 17 years old, this is the way that she's going to get into the practice, not what her old aunt is saying of, oh, be mindful, darling, and be, what I'm trying to go with this.
No, I get it. I think it can be a gateway. And any way that someone comes to the practice is the right way, because that means they're there.
And I noticed that I was trolling other people's posts, and I came to this realization couple days ago where like I was starting to troll too much, and hashtags is ladies of yoga, hashtags yoga pants. There were a little bit out of my comfort zone, and I was giving moral superiority kind of speeches, and then higher self again kind of smacked me out and said, it's not your problem. Let it be.
Yeah, we're not the police officers of yoga. Those don't exist. But
No.
Sometimes there is that cultural appropriation kind of disrespect line that I feel is for me the most difficult to confront when I see women doing things that look like it could be in an adult graphic magazine, but they're calling that yoga.
Well, I have to agree to disagree with that. I have a huge argument with a writer of an InStyle magazine about that topic. And I just gotta give you my point of view with this. I'm from Mexico. I'm colonized, and I don't want people to start weaponizing yoga. Is this cultural appropriation issue is becoming for me another way to create war and separation on the world. I, being colonized, I am half Spanish and half Mexican, and I have grown out of the he, she, it color skin. I get treated differently every single day of my life because my husband is Canadian, my children is Canadian, I am Mexican. But if we're talking about unconditional love really, really deeply, you, as a minority, you got to start not seeing yourself as a victim, or you're not going to grow out of that. And it was this article in InStyle Yoga magazine about culture and appropriation of yoga and how Om and Namaste are used so lightly. And I am just looking at that and I'm saying, please don't take this war into yoga. The world is becoming too polarized. For me, I remember I'm Mexican and we live in a very different culture. So yeah, it's a topic that for me, I'm seeing more and more in social media right now that we have movements for every single thing. And now yoga is the same. And I'm like, no, that's not about it. Yoga is an inner experience. Yoga is about a self knowledge. So yeah, I went into war with this with a couple of yoginis that wanted to make politics with spirituality. I don't like that.
I'm really grateful you shared that perspective with me. I hadn't had someone ever present it that way of just don't bring this war into yoga. Just keep it out.
It defeats the purpose of yoga. That was my kind of questioning. I understand all of it, but imagine, just for a second, imagine this, Lily. Imagine if I will get personal, if I get mad with every single person in the world that has Taco Tuesday, or they celebrate Cinco de Mayo and they put their hats on their heads. Like, I can't see the world that way. I cannot relate to this hatred that is becoming to become this polarization, and certainly not with yoga. that it means we are all one, and the beauty you see in me is the beauty that I see in you. And you're not different because your skin color is different than mine, or because your heritage is different than mine. I don't think rishis even thought about that if we go back to 4,000 years ago.
No, of course they weren't concerned with that.
No, this is our era right now, and it breaks my heart in million pieces that I see all the administration is trying to invade a little bit of real spirituality about not being. We don't want to segregate, but yet we segregate. How is that yoga?
No, as you said, we're all one, and yoga doesn't seek to divide. When division happens, it's not yoga. That's something I believe. And so it's interesting to hear, because I'm also so concerned with trying to be respectful, and I have on these glasses, these lenses. So I appreciate you sharing this.
Oh, you have to hang out more with Mexicans. We're so politically incorrect.
Well, fun fact, I'm actually like a quarter. My dad is half Spanish, half
Oh,
Mexican as
well, you
well.
know your
So
dad then. We just said how we feel, and right now the world, you have to be careful with nouns, you have to be careful with last names, you have to be careful with gender, you have to be, and communications have became so like, you have to be so politically correct. This authenticity of the spirit is becoming crushed. And this is my approach, because I live in a country that is not so influenced about that, but all of my friendships are from the United States and Canada, so I can see the two worlds. And I sometimes would like to go into more love and less war.
absolutely. And I know my dad. Yeah, everything comes out. It is no filter, and definitely has caught a lot of people off guard with those things. But I'm glad we're talking a little bit about Mexico, because I definitely want to ask you, Ana, how is yoga perceived in Mexico, or where you're located to, your city, or if you don't want to talk about the whole country, whatever you'd prefer.
Well, the entire country is very interesting because, we're a Catholic country. So, yoga in the beginning, probably 20 years ago, my mom used to pray for me in the beginning of my journey. She says, "Oh, my daughter is becoming into this kind of voodoo that is called yoga." And she prayed for me in Mass and her little bit of group where they study the Bible. And that was 22 years ago. And right now we are a little bit more open to embrace yoga and not conflicted so much with religion as they used to be. And there is a definite opening to yoga finally. Now all of my friends are yogis, and all of my friends in their 40s are getting to know a little bit more of the system and not precisely understanding it as a religion versus more as a philosophy. Everybody's starting to turn their heads now into wellness. Everybody's interested about meditation. And before that, it was not the case. Before, we were very few, and now we're kind of catching up a little bit to other countries. And now we're probably 20 years behind. You know what happened in 2000 in Canada and United States, where yoga exploded and every corner was a yoga studio. It's happening right now in cities like Guadalajara, which is the nearest city that I am, and everybody wants to be a yoga teacher. Everybody wants to be involved in some kind of practice. So it's uplifting to see that it opened up.
That's wonderful, because I remember I think you told me before that when you first opened your home studio, in the small community you're in, they thought you were a witch.
Ah, yeah, they still think, because I'm in a small town, and people from the small town are very conservative. And I'm still perceived like the yoga lady, the weird yoga lady. But in the little town that I live is highly influenced by American and Canadian and European cultures. It's a very multicultural part because we have the best weather in the world, number two. So a lot of people retire here. So right now, yoga here is kind of very, 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 very popular. There's a lot of yogis and yoginis that have moved in the last 5 years. So it's more accepted. But yeah, it was a tough starting in here. And as I tell you, like I was perceived like I was entering the dark side.
I'm so glad you persevered and kept saying, I'm going to teach it. I'm going to teach you all yoga. You're going to come sooner or later, or you're going to figure this out. Wow.
Oh my God, you have to. You have to. I mean, I always been a little bit of a rebellious, very strong personality since I'm a child. And for many years, I was unfocused. For many years, I didn't found myself. So through yoga, with yoga, I found myself, I found God, I found love, I found union. So I was not gonna let it go for anything or anybody. It was kind of my way of being whole, connected. So it doesn't matter the price. I was not gonna go back to where I was before.
So, Anna, to wrap up our time together, I would love for you to share with our listeners any offerings you have online, anything's coming up. Of course, our episode will be live forever and ever and ever. So, any links to share, I'd love to let our listeners know.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, right now, first of all, I want to bring an apology if I touch sensitive topics that people like to go around the bushes. I have absolutely no no mean to harm anybody's beliefs, especially with all what is happening on the world. But I think we're very rarely asked uh, people that are considered minority or victims how is to not feel a victim, and I wanted to share that. That was very important to me. And yeah, I mean, hopefully this is not perceived the wrong way. I think my whole legacy, if I want to leave a legacy in the world, is to not weaponize yoga. And you can find my teachings and find who I am as a teacher in my platform. I have a international yoga platform is drishticenter.com. Drishti as a focal point in Sanskrit. Center is spelled Canadian way. Also in Instagram, I have my personal blog as Ana Yoga Drishti. And I have a little bit of my center share on Instagram as well as Drishti Center. From my heart, what I have to give in Spanish, in English, and bilingual.
I will definitely link to all of those to your website, to your social media here in the show notes, wherever you're listening to this podcast, as well as on my website, wildyogatribe.com. So thank you so much, Anna, for sharing your light and your love and your wisdom with us today.
Oh, Lily, thank you for having me over. Uh, and anytime, anybody has a question, please feel free. I'm open to, keep sharing in whatever form they want. Also, personal emails. There is my email there. Just keep yoga letting be a healing process is for me my endeavor.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear listener, for tuning into my conversation with Ana Paula from Mexico. I hope you found this conversation to be as as profound as I did. It was such an honor for Ana to share her story of, hitting rock bottom and really doing all of that hard shadow work, all that work to come to where she is to get today. And as she says, yoga is survival for her. And what a powerful question to ask yourself is, what is yoga for you? And it was an honor to hear her answer and her whole story. So I hope you also found it to be a beautiful episode, and I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Thank you, and be well. Thank you for being on this journey with me. It has been a privilege to be with you. I know that your time is precious, and I am both humbled and honored that you chose to spend your time with me here on the Wild Yoga Tribe podcast. As you are on your own inner journey, remember that you are not alone. There are so many of us on this path to awakening, this path of self-discovery and expansion, and we are right here alongside you. Remember to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And if you feel called, please share this episode with someone that you think could benefit from it. Leaving a review would also be so appreciated. If you're on social media, I am there too at the Wild Yoga Tribe. You can tap into all the amazing resources on my website, thewildyogatribe.com, and you can meditate with me on Insight Timer and get your flow on with me on my YouTube channel, where I've recorded free yoga classes. If you would like to schedule a private yoga or meditation class with me or a coaching session, you can find the link to do so to book in the show notes or on my website. Again, thewildyogatribe.com. Thank you once again, dear listener, for being with me. May your day be light and bright. May you be peaceful and happy and led on the right path, free of suffering and free of sorrow. Be well, dear one. Be well.